Welcome to the Red Rose Film Club, a movie podcast that picks apart movies from the viewpoint of the political left. We love deconstructing movies almost as much as watching them, and wanted to share our conversations with our liberal, leftist, socialist, communist, Marxist, and Leninist friends. Hi, I'm Craig, and I'm with...
Hey, I'm Hal. Letterboxd says my most watched theme of 2024 was intense violence and sexual transgression. Guilty as charged. And I can't say I'm trying to change that. But in 2024, I've also been guilty of backsliding into fear-driven paralysis politically. And in 2025, I'm trying to change that.
Well, this is normally the part where Hal starts and asks me what I've been watching, but we have a guest with us today. Recently on the podcast, I mentioned that I saw my first ever live screening of Rocky Horror Picture Show a few months ago, and it was a ton of fun. So we decided when we wanted to talk about Rocky Horror Picture Show, I thought who better than the host of that very screening, Indie Sinclair. Indie is the owner and producer of Cryptese Productions, which runs two Tallahassee shows, the Cryptese at 926 and the Pinup Power Hour at Fire Betty's. Indie travels all around the Southeast as a performer and is on the Pride Board for Tallahassee. Indie, welcome to the podcast and thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm stoked to talk about movies.
Hell yeah. And so we're obviously going to talk about Rocky Horror, but we'll save any conversation of that for a bit later when we get to it, because usually when we have folks on, we like to ask what movies, what kind of shit you've been watching? What do you like? How'd you become a movie lover? If you are.
I am absolutely a movie lover. Unfortunately, it is in the ADHD way. I am violently ADHD, and my father is also violently ADHD. So the tendency to watch the same movies over and over and over again was passed lovingly down to me as a child.
Yeah, I used to be like that as a kid, and now I have trouble rewatching shit because my ADHD goes the other way, where I'm like,
you need stimulation constantly, novelty constantly. 100%. I need comfort.
100%.
I need granted, I have 2 college degrees. You never know it. I'm a professional stripper blasphemer now, but I have degrees in biology and psychology. Oh. And it's just the emotional aspect of when you rewatch something, you know exactly what emotional journey you're going to go on every single time you watch it, and you're never surprised. So I end up watching the same shit over and over and over again.
Oh yeah, what's the go-to rewatch?
Hold
on, let me hit you with a mood.
Okay, love that.
It's been a long week.
Very helpful, actually.
It's been a long week. You had to go to the dentist this afternoon, and it wasn't great, and you need something to relax to. We're watching...
I'm probably looking to experience... I'm looking for something where I can live vicariously through the character going through a lot of shit and getting through it.
Oh yeah.
I watch You're Next, the horror movie You're Next, often.
That's a fave.
I love that movie.
Wife.
If I'm having a horrible time and I need to get through something, I will watch where the emotional narrative is exactly that. I'll watch Kill Bill.
Hell yeah.
A lot. That is my first tattoo is a Kill Bill tattoo.
Nice.
Almost all of my
cool.
tattoos are movie tattoos. Almost all of them. A lot of them are discreet, but almost all of them are movie tattoos. So I'll watch Kill Bill. I'll watch You're Next. I also, no one liked this but me, and I know that, and I'm okay with that. But I will watch Hardcore Henry a lot.
I didn't see Hardcore Henry.
It was fun.
I did not.
Nauseating.
But
as
a contrarian, I was like, let's see. Because I often like things other people don't and dislike things that other people do. So.
Yeah.
I was very interested, but the nauseating aspect of it, I think, swayed me away. Of being
hard to watch in theaters. Pretty solid to watch. I watch, that's almost always what I end up watching when I'm getting a tattoo done. I watch that because it helps me get through the physical sensations a lot.
That's
so
cool.
I do that a lot. There's I need to get through something. And then there's comfort movies. My number one comfort movie is probably RoboCop.
Hell yeah.
I love RoboCop so much. I have a painting of RoboCop in my house.
That's dope.
I love him. And I'm also a huge apologist where I'm like, no, it's not just a dumb 80s movie. It's about capitalism and stuff. It's got a lot to say.
It for sure is. And
yeah, deeply.
I have several Verhoeven films
that
fill that role for me.
Yeah.
I think I watched Starship Troopers 7 times last year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was a big one as a teenager for me, was Starship Troopers.
Yeah. And also Benedetta, more recent one of his. films, but I quite love and find very comforting.
Jess just got that for me on Blu-ray. I haven't rewatched it yet, but I really want to.
It's delightful. I think it's on Hulu also, or It had been for extended period of time.
I did want to say that Your Next has 2 lines that you like when you love something a lot and with someone else and you like just shout out the lines in like context to you and the other person, but if overheard, you sound insane. And it has 2 that me and Jess, my wife, say to each other all the time. And my favorite my favorite one is when they're getting attacked at first and like the brothers are bickering and he gets, I can't remember which one, but like the older brother gets shot with an arrow and they're like still bickering. And the other brother's like, I think you can use this technology to scramble the signal. And in the middle of like him being shot with an arrow, he just goes, Felix, you're such a fucking scumbag. And I love that. And Jess and I yell, Felix, you're such a fucking scumbag. And then the other one is the like classic immortal line of, you seem like you were going to know because I want to see.
I'm putting a pin in this because I have a ton of random quotes that I say all the time that drive people nuts.
I wanted to see if you were going to guess what mine from Your Next was. It was the immortal classic out of context line, but that Jess has, which is fuck me next to your dead mother near the end of Your Next, which is an awesome movie.
Mine are really strange. I have a bunch from Killer Clowns from Outer Space that are almost not quotes. They're so small, they're almost not quotes. They just make me laugh. In Killer Clowns from Outer Space, when it's just that like montage of them taking over random parts of the town, they like show up at this very hot lady's door with pizza, and she opens the door and just goes, pizza. And I say that all the time. And then he says no. The main character in Killer Clowns, she's like, well, have you seen anything like this before? And he goes, no. And I say that all the time as well. There are a bunch of them. I'm insufferable.
I've never seen Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
It's fucking great.
But I have been on the haunted house.
It's very fun.
Universal.
Highly recommend. It's very, very fun. It's a wonderful time. The practical effects are unreal. It's very quotable. It's crazy. Like it is such a passion project and you can feel it. It's one of those. Yeah.
How do you have a rewatch constantly? I mean, maybe Starship Troopers.
I mean, it shifts. I find I have like phases. I would say the last couple of years, Starship Troopers, Barry Lyndon, Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, and Tampopo are up there. Went through a very long period of time where it was like just Scorsese, like just like any Scorsese movie I would watch at all at weird hours or just turn on a scene of it, you know, or watch 30 minutes and fall asleep and the rest of it plays and people are shooting each other. And, you know, Mike is like, what the fuck?
And then you wake up in a start.
Yeah, why do you do this? Kill Bill is for sure one of those for me. I have rewatched Lady Snowblood a lot in the last couple of years as well. Yeah.
I've been trying to think of mine, and then you said Scorsese, and that's a good one because I feel like that's one for me. But the other one is really weird because it's kind of a fucking bummer the entire time. But Inside Llewyn Davis is a big, like, often rewatch for me.
Classic.
Yeah, but it's about a kind of a dirtbag, and I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, how do we want to switch it up this time and me ask you what you've been watching first?
Are you not going to talk about Lynch?
Oh my goodness, I did want to talk about that, which is...
Let's talk about that first and then, yes, sure, if we want to do a switcheroony.
Which obviously...
Because I have some things to say about Lynch because I have been watching some things that I hadn't seen.
Nice. So obviously, this is the first podcast we've recorded since the passing of David Lynch, who I know meant a lot to me as a director and also Hal. And I was trying to write something and it always feels corny writing stuff like this because I always get like superlative and hyperbolic. But then I saw our good friend Kevin Cole of Cap City Video Lounge shared a tribute online. And so I just wanted to read what he wrote about him. David Lynch was able to tap into a kind of collective unconscious that connected all of us. Watching The Elephant Man the day after his passing and watching a group of outsiders, those society keeps locked up and in servitude, come together to free and save one of their own, one of us outsiders, it struck me harder than ever what we've lost. I take comfort in knowing his art and creations will live on forever, with each new generation discovering it, and those like us will feel the liberation and joy of knowing that there are other souls out there that embrace the mystery of being here at all, that we live and breathe and love and struggle and try over and over in an existence that that we'll never ever fully understand or have answers to. But we all know in our hearts how poetic, beautiful, and wonderful being here is. The light and darkness, the good, the bad, the pain, the joy, laughter and tears, all of it. David will never truly be gone, not as long as we continue to reach out to the unknown, embrace one another, continue to create, and never stop dreaming. As David once said, we will all see each other again. I'll see you in the trees. So yeah, I thought that was a very nice thing from our good pal, Kevin. Hal, what do you want to add about?
So, not before he passed, I never ended up talking about it on the pod, but I had borrowed Lost Highway.
Yes.
From you, probably about 2 months ago at this point in time. And then shortly after that, I watched Inland Empire, which I had never seen. And then, since his passing, I have started Twin Peaks, which is like one of those major holes for me. I have never watched it. I mean, I've like been present while it's been watched.
You know, like the large.
Right. But like a group of people are watching it. I've, maybe seen portions of episodes. And
you've experienced it. It just hasn't been your experience.
Yeah. And in talking to Mike about it and trying to understand, because I've loved his movies since I was a teenager, trying to dig into like why. And I think it's just, I had a group of friends as a teenager who were really impactful for me in terms of introducing me to certain, let's say, sectors of cinema I hadn't been exposed to before, right? Like that's who I learned about Criterion Collection from and stuff like that. Before that, I was a very like Entertainment Weekly, Oscar driven, like that kind of thing. And they were all super obsessed with the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks because that was all that had been released at that time. I guess Fire Walk with Me would have been.
Yeah, by the time we were in.
Would have been out.
Middle school, high school age, yeah.
But they were just like obsessed with it in a way that, as I've said many times before, I just have a little bit of a contrarian spirit. Like if everyone is like, I love this thing, there's just a bitter bitch in me that is like, no. Yeah. I'm not watching that. And I think also part of it was that all of the surrealist oddity elements of Twin Peaks are what percolates up to the top. In terms of what's advertised, what's branded, the merch people have, the way they talk about it. And so if someone had just said, if you love his movies, you will love this show. Everything you like about peeling back the dark layer, what lives under the skin of suburbia, what lives underneath the nuclear family, you will like this show. And the surrealism is present, but it's not the bulk of what's going on. It's what is highlighting or supplementing or driving the point home. I don't know if I would have watched it earlier, but maybe. But I've really been loving it, and I've been taking it very, very slow. I mean, I'm not much of a binge TV watcher in the first place, mostly because I don't watch a lot of TV because I don't like to consume things that way. So we've been watching like an episode a night or like every few days watching an episode, and I'm enjoying that. We're going to do season 1, season 2, Fire Walk with Me, and then The Return. Yeah. And The Return is Mike, who's my husband's, like favorite television series ever. And he's not someone that's very effusive in support of things. So, I'm looking forward to continuing to have it unfold in front of me. It's like, it feels like a very special treasure that I'm getting to, really, like kind of blissfully sit with, instead of having it be defined by, its pop culture remnants.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And also, I think Lost Highway rips. I just want to say that. Fucking, like, really, really good. Yeah. Amazing.
Everybody but Patricia Arquette, especially in that, and old boy, the main one, Pullman.
Yeah. Well, yes, but he's in it for like 20 minutes. And then the Balthazar Getty takes over. That is the worst part of the movie is I just don't fucking like that guy's face and I don't think he's a great actor. Yeah, I don't. I mean, I love the shift. Like it's not the shift. It's just him specific. I'm like, what were you doing casting here? Like, why go from Bill Pullman, who's a talented actor, to this motherfucker whose seeming only skills was being born in the Getty family, which, you know,
some skill.
Good job if you can get it, I gotta say.
Great. Robert Blake.
Wow. Fucking horrifying.
Really creepy. It's crazy when actors play against their kind of natural, like who they are naturally as a person, right? So, like, he's kind of a sweet, soft soul. Did something happen?
Has he ever done anything horrible, like murder his girlfriend?
Anyone?
Are you a Daniel Clowes fan at all?
Yeah, I've read a little bit, but not a whole lot. What's the big one? The
Ghost World. I mean, is his most prominent.
Name another one that would
Daniel Boring. 8 Ball was his like ongoing.
I know I've read another one recently, and I can't think of what it was.
Oh yeah, like an Iron Fist. No, like a velvet glove cast in iron.
Well, that's...
Yeah. But a lot of his work, less so Ghost World, and there's a lot of the stuff in 8 Ball isn't necessarily, but many of his other like collected works, like the other ones we named there, in particular, I'm thinking of Daniel Boring and the like a velvet glove cast in iron. That's definitely the name of it.
Okay, that rolled off real smooth that second time.
Like, yes, that's for sure.
That came off real smooth.
Or, because I still do enjoy reading graphic novels, but as a teenager in my early 20s, I loved that shit. Like I have a tattoo of Ina Coleslaw on my leg, right? Like I loved his work, and he in those pieces he is engaged in a kind of neo-surrealism that's like infusing neo-noir elements with surrealism in a way that there's just not many other pieces of art that I feel combine those like kind of disparate genre conventions together, and Lost Highway is just totally part and parcel of that. And so I just really loved it. Inland Empire I will never watch again. I'm glad I sat through it. That's enough for me.
I do love Inland Empire, but I also
full
understand,
respect to the creative process.
Yeah, it is hard. It is literally hard to watch.
It's
sometimes.
It's ugly. Like it's just not for me. But glad David made it.
with his swan song now, as it turns out.
I know.
But
that bums me out. But with I think, it's a love letter to Laura Dern's acting abilities. The way that I have any entry point into it. Yeah.
And did you have a favorite David Lynch? Are you a David Lynch?
I am incredibly basic in this capacity because I lean towards Eraserhead.
Hell yeah. That's
which I know is like
too.
I like traveling and I like The Office kind of answer. But I appreciate him in the way that I appreciate a lot of that sort of camp of filmmaking, of being able to communicate the human experience that humans can't communicate themselves.
Yeah.
And that's something that is like becoming harder and harder and less common to do as we, politically move in the opposite direction of ignoring impulse and not even acknowledging it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I tend to lean towards Eraserhead.
Yeah. He's just really good at capturing humanity in like a surrealist way that's fun, but also like, I don't know, like life affirming.
When you were talking about Twin Peaks, I was exactly what I was going to comment on. You said, oh, it's the surreal elements that get put on all the posters, but there's so much more to it than that. And I think that it's the surrealism as an art form has such a specific way to tap into feelings that you cannot articulate. And that's when it's used, I think, the best. And it's almost like, I feel this way because all of my favorite movie of all time is Return of the Living fucking Dead. So like I have such an intense love for that, like what is now, I guess, colloquially known as like the 80s, like schlock, like, it's like an 80s movie, man. Like, I feel similarly about that pocket of cinema as a genre because the exact same thing gets done to it, where it's like an 80s movie, man. There's like bright colors and blood and stuff. And it's like, no, it's an 80s movie because it's a direct result of the oppressive political atmosphere of the 80s. Like, and that's why you can't replicate it. It's in the same way that the surrealism is used to speak for the human experience, like the over the top gore and the bright colors and the gaudiness of 80s cinema is people working through like the unbelievably impressive environment of the Reagan years. And when you just take those like stylistic choices, like the surrealism, like whatever, and put that on the box, it will always be without a soul. It's what it's used to tell that gives it any kind of merit. So that popped into my head while you were talking about that.
I agree. I mean, I think, right, in terms of tying that into like underlying political perspective that we talked about, like I am a materialist, and the political conditions, the economic conditions in which films were made absolutely defines what they're able to create, the tools that they have at their disposal to convey narrative and feeling and characterization. But what I was going to say, just back on the Lynch for a second, is my favorite Lynch film is Blue Velvet, which I feel like is like the most basic in terms of like that. You know, that's my favorite Lynch. But this is a thing that just blew me away. And now watching, I'm almost done with the first season. I think I'm on the last episode of season 1. And there are many scenes, especially once you get like 2 or 3 episodes in, that I'm just like, this is just Blue Velvet. Like, you know, when they're in the roadhouse.
The red room,
yeah,
too,
like Blue Velvet again.
I thought we wouldn't
when they're in the
notice.
roadhouse, there's a woman, you know, there's
Yeah.
the bikers, and they're singing in the isolated, like, like soft light. I'm like, this is Blue Velvet is what is happening right now.
This is Blue Velvet for people that like X-Files.
Right. And I do like X-Files, so it's great.
Hey,
But
theory tracks.
you're right. It's, you know, the ability to capture something that is impossible to put in the words of reality is, you know, Lynch's, the joy that he brought into his work is not at odds with the darkness. It's because he's trying to reconcile the two. That was true with his public persona, and it was also true with the tools that he used in crafting his filmmaking.
I think he was so very beloved because he's not the only director that has kind of set his intentions to do that. But I think that David Lynch in particular was so very beloved for the way he did it, because you can feel that the intention behind drawing out all of those like very weird, latent, uncomfortable emotional experiences that come with being alive and being sentient, unfortunately. I think you can feel the intention with pulling them out and flaying them open for people to see is not simply for the like power trip or like the art of being able to do that, but it's deliberate in that it is meant to help you connect with other people. The art is almost, it drags those feelings out, not to be like, look at them. But I think it's the intention was always sort of unifying in a way of dragging these like weird impulses that human beings experience out into the light, so you can share those experiences rather than feeling isolated in them through like an artistic medium kind of. I think that's a lot of why he was so loved.
Yeah, I agree. I think kind of think of it as like trying to sweat the fever out.
Yeah. I'll also say that Blue Velvet and David Lynch's passing made me get in a public argument with my father because we were at a bar talking about it, and he wouldn't stop insisting that Nick Cage was in Blue Velvet.
Is he thinking of Wild at Heart?
He was thinking of Wild at Heart, which we eventually got to. So yeah, that was great. That was great. That's the level of pettiness that my father and I bring to the relationship with each other.
What is art
David
for if
Lynch
not
uniting
familial disputes?
Father and sons to yell at each other in a weird ass boomer bar. But yeah, so I'm glad we took some time to talk about David Lynch. But Hal, do you want to tell us what you've been watching lately?
Yes. So I will say I had a screed written about Amelia Perez. I have erased it. I don't, especially with Carla Vasquez. I think that's her name. She's got, I think, a few other names in her full name, but with her the revelation of all of her tweets and her exploding the Oscars, I think it's been talked to death right now. She has said some insanely racist shit. Like I don't encourage you. It's bad. Like it's so bad that the production company and the distributor are no longer paying for her travel for the Oscars media because she's nominated for Best Actress. We'll talk about Oscars a little bit more later, but they stopped. Like literally is so bad that they were like, we are not going to pay for you to continue the publicity tour.
Gnarly.
Okay. If you want to go, you can pay it for yourself. So that's how bad it is.
Sounds like we got some Daily Wire movies in her future.
Except she's a trans woman. So.
Okay. Well.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anywhere near there. Then.
Yeah.
Stay away from the Daily Wire.
She sucks, but we don't need her to be hate crimed by Ben Shapiro's lackeys. Right. So I erase it. I'm like, she is digging her own grave. I do not need to go on my rant here. So instead, what I'm going to talk about are some movies that I watched during Snow Week.
Oh, because it fucking snowed in Florida. What the hell?
If you listen to this and you don't live in Tallahassee, 2 weeks ago, it snowed and the city shut down for a week. It was crazy. So I watched a lot of movies during that time, including Amelia Perez, which, by the way, I watched because in multiple group chats I'm in, people were bitching at each other about it, none of them having seen the movie. So I was like, I have nothing to do. I'm here at home. I'm fucking watching this movie.
Let's look this demon in the face.
Yeah, I'm sick of this fucking shit. Stop talking about this goddamn movie that you haven't seen.
So can I say real quick, like, I thought that this movie was considered not good by like a huge group of people. So like when which I mean, like, who the fuck cares about the Oscars in that way anyways, but it got like 15 nominations.
So this is
or something, right? Like
it is the highest number of nominations for an international feature ever.
13.
Yes.
That's
so, okay, well, we could talk about this a little then. So the part of my rant was that I think a lot of the things that people are accusing the movie of being are not accurate and are done in bad faith. Now, I'm not talking about many of the like political accusations. You know, if a trans woman critic watches the movie and says, I feel like this is trivializing my experience, I'm not telling her, no, it doesn't. Yeah. Right. But what I am saying is I think there was some dumb bullshit that was happening with people posting about this movie where they would take a clip. There's if you haven't seen it, there's a song that takes place in a gender reassignment clinic. Okay.
I know what we're talking about now. I saw this on Twitter.
Yes.
I've been lost up until just now.
And there is a song where Zoe Saldana's character, who is not Amelia Perez. Amelia Perez is a trans woman and played by a trans woman.
By the person that's made these terrible tweets.
I think her name is Carla Vasquez Garzon. I think might be her full name. But Zoe Saldana is playing like a lawyer who gets roped in to that person's life. Carla Sofia Gascon. Okay. And her mission is she is sent out by Amelia Perez, the character, to visit different gender reassignment clinics in order to identify the clinic where her boss can go to receive gender affirming care. Okay. So that's the context. And then we see this scene where videos that have been going around Twitter, TikTok, etc., where someone says like penis to vagina as like a part of a song. Okay.
All right.
So
I'm starting to get an idea of what
people are clipping this. People are clipping this and being like, this is so fucking stupid. Here's my thing. Basically any fucking musical that you watch, if you took a 5-second clip of any song, it would sound fucking stupid as fuck. Okay? Because here is how musicals work as a genre and as an art form. They're about suspension of disbelief.
Yes.
And then what happens musically exists, kind of like we were just talking about with surrealism, exists on a plane above and beyond what could be achieved in reality. And so you have to, the commitment to experiencing a musical as a viewer is the suspension of disbelief, the absorption into the spectacle, and then allowing that to carry whatever the musical is attempting to do with it, drive the plot, engage in characterization, whatever. It is inherently silly if you are outside of the spectacle. Now, I'm not saying that it's the greatest fucking song or that it was prudent, but to take 5 seconds of it, and
I don't know, that seems tight.
But
that's
here's
the problem.
actually my thing.
That sounds like if that's like if that very snippet is indicative of the rest of the movie, I'm like 10 toes down on board because that sounds
everything
stupid
I learn about it
and
makes
gaudy,
me like
and it
a
sounds
little bit
awesome.
more interested, even though I'm here. Like I've only ever heard
So
kind of shit about it.
There are many other like. I'm say valid concerns, some of which I don't necessarily fully agree with, but I understand where people are coming from.
Grounded
Yes.
concerns.
There are people are upset that Selena Gomez Spanish is very bad. The whole movie is in Spanish, or almost all of the movie is in Spanish. That her Spanish is not very good. That her accent is quite bad. People are upset that Carlos Sofia Gascon is from Spain and is playing a Mexican cartel boss. And her accent is distinctly Spanish and not Mexican. There are people who are concerned about the framing of the cartel wars and the way that flattens the Mexican experience and or trivializes the deaths and murders, right, of those who have suffered at the hands of cartel. There's, as I raised, concerns around trans identity and how it's depicted in the film. So I'm not saying that there are no meaningful critiques. I think people saying this is the dumbest fucking movie and it's so fucking stupid. Like, if you want to critique it politically, critique it politically. It's not actually a substitute. Political critiques are not actually a substitute for aesthetic critiques. And people that haven't seen the movie can't make aesthetic critiques of the movie. Like, is just essentially what I wanted to say. That said, the musical elements suck, and it is not a good fucking musical. Okay? It's not.
There's always, I think there's no harder position to approach something like this from than like, yes, it sucks, but like not that, like look closer. Look closer. Like there's
I do agree with you, but like, I also don't.
There's like it's such a kick in the ass always to have to be like, yes, I know, like what you said of like, this person's a garbage person, but it's not because of this. It's because of these actions they took. It's not because she's a trans woman. It's because this sucks balls.
Right, because she was tweeting about ejecting all Muslims from Spain. It's like it's the fucking Inquisition.
Like so close.
She's talking about Moors.
So close, but like look, please.
Yeah,
look with your special eyes. I beg you.
Another layer. So I will say, in terms of like the question of then why is it achieving the level of prominence that it has?
Sure.
There are some very practical reasons for that. One, the Oscars voting base, like the Academy, is increasingly international. The director is French, okay? And the production company is French. Now, that has pissed off a lot of Mexican critics, but if that's not who the Academy is composed of, it doesn't fucking matter. Right. There's also the issue, it's not that it's an issue, but there's also the level at which this is the same reason that Wicked has a lot of nominations. Large productions have a lot of backline people working on it, and backline people and craftspeople make up most of the Academy. And they trend older. So if you're an older person who, and I'll also say this, because it's a big production, it's also more likely that more craftspeople worked on it. So it's more likely that those people know people that worked on the production also. So like this idea that there's like a conspiracy or like these the Academy doesn't realize how shitty this film is is a total misunderstanding of
How
who the Academy is and how it operates.
You're in a social media echo chamber where all of your friends are dunking on this.
Right, which
the
is
rest
fine.
of the
Dunk
world,
on it.
which is totally dunking is not the problem. But like you are in a social media bubble where everyone is dunking on this and everyone has recycled the same 4 tweets about this that you have. Stick your head out your door. Like this had a much different reception on on an international scale.
Yeah, it was loved
totally
at Cannes. Like it was loved at
I'm
Cannes.
also realizing very swiftly I need a back of box bio on whatever the fuck we're talking about. Because this sounds sick.
Okay, so I
This
remember,
sounds
'cause
bananas.
It came out almost a year ago, right? Like it's been out for a minute.
It's been out for so it came out at Cannes last year, which is like in midsummer.
Okay.
And then Netflix distributed
That's right. I remember seeing it.
So you
and
can
seeing,
watch it on Netflix if you want.
Images
but-
like guns and like shooty, and it just did. I was like, oh, this thing's like kind of like a weird action movie that I don't know anything about, and I just skipped it. And then it started getting traction, and I'm like, oh wait, this shit's a musical. And then like everything I learned about it is making me want to check it out more, including all the aspects that seem bad.
The nicest thing I can say about it is that the staging, choreography of all of the music, even though I don't like the fucking music, the staging and the choreography is really well done.
Yeah.
Like things can be done well.
Good. It looks good.
Yeah.
So like that's the other thing, right? It's a big glossy musical, and if you're an old person and you're like, wow, they made a movie about a Mexican cartel boss who undergoes gender reassignment surgery and then is trying to make her life better and kind of repent for the ill will that she did. That's so progressive.
Thank you for my back of box bio.
Yes.
I appreciate the fuck out of you for that.
And it's
Thank you.
And Zoe Saldana plays her lawyer, is a lawyer that she
like a
loops
cartel
in.
lawyer.
No,
Or like
and that's one of the parts of the movie that I do think is
she
interesting.
was like a shady, like
She's
Saul Goodman type.
Evil lawyer.
But she continually sacrifices her principles for money,
that's cool.
basically.
Yeah, I mean, that's
so there
interesting,
are.
yeah.
It's not that there's nothing interesting or compelling. Now there are people who look at this and they go, which is a fair perspective that I understand. This movie is saying that transitioning is an opportunity to escape from yourself when really it's the same you, and that's offensive, right? Like this idea, and I'm like, I can understand why one may interpret things that way.
Sure.
I think there's also an interesting way of framing this as what someone is able and willing to give up to accomplish their true self, and that the birth of a true self involves multiple evolutions.
Oh, yeah.
Now, again, is the movie executed brilliantly? No. And I'm not saying we need to apologize for it or love it, but the social media hubbub around this fucking movie is so stupid, why would they ever vote for it? First of all, she is fucking tanking its Oscar chances, except for maybe Zoe
Don't
Saldana.
worry, she's taking care of it for you.
Except for maybe Zoe Saldana.
Y'all are on the same team.
Yeah, but I don't know. But like I said, I'm a contrarian, and also it does just piss me off when people are like getting whipped up into a froth about like some bullshit that they didn't even watch. Like, I'm like,
That's it. Like,
just don't watch
if
it.
you want to have
and
an
don't
opinion,
talk about it then.
have an opinion.
Yeah.
But
Right.
like you need to actually
Have an
know
informed opinion.
what you
Yeah.
think about that.
Right.
Yeah. You
And
don't
then,
know.
Honestly, there's so much shit in this movie that if you watch it, if you really want to rip it to shreds, you can say more.
Stoked. Can't wait.
There's more you
Looking
can say.
forward to it.
Well, since we've gotten into the Oscars, do you want to continue?
Sure, we can.
Reworking our agenda here and just talk about the Oscars.
Stoked to not know anything. Can't wait. Very excited.
I pay attention to the Oscars way less than I did even 5 or 6 years ago, so I don't know much.
I watch a new movie maybe 4 times a year. I seriously watch the same shit. I'm not joking. Watch the same shit over and over and over again. And I have a lot to say about those. You know, I have a pull string on my back, and you pull it, and I'll talk about one of 6 movies for years. That's all I've got.
Can I ask if one of them was, because this is one of the things I was very happy about with the Oscar nominations, was one of the 4 movies you watched last year, The Substance?
Of course it was. Oh my
Hell
God.
yeah. Like, the fact that The Substance got 5 nominations is crazy.
I don't know who that was made for, if not just me.
Yeah.
I loved every single fucking second of it. I've watched it like 7 times.
Loved it as well.
Yeah, I saw it twice in theaters the same week.
Yeah. In the same. That's right.
Loved it.
But that's awesome because, like, first off, that movie's cool as hell, and also I just like horror obviously never gets that much love from
Absolutely.
the Academy Awards, and it's just fucking exciting to see.
This ties into exactly what I was talking about earlier with like 80s movies, because that's what I've heard about, you know, that's what people are talking about. They're like, it's like an 80s movie. It's like, it's really, really cool. It's like, it's got all these 80s elements. It's like, no, it has a backbone.
Yeah.
It's talking about the like absolute hell that being objectified from the moment you become conscious and building your entire self-worth around that and reckoning with your body decaying around you. Like, it's got an emotional backbone to it.
Yeah,
that's why this one works, and a bunch of these are just special effects reels. I loved it. I loved that it had a genuine, really, really solid emotional, like human backbone to it, and still got nasty and disgusting and
so
wonderful.
Gross.
I loved
Demi
it.
Moore is like, I feel like she's the closest to a lock. I don't keep my you had a smile like,
I mean,
I got my horse in the race.
I would like her to win.
You would like her, but you think that it's going to be who?
I don't know who else is there.
She's playing this one close. I don't either. I can't remember the nominations either.
You ready for me to know about 2 out of 10 things that you talk about?
So there are the betting lines right now.
Oh, hell yeah. I forgot people do that now.
And, you know, there's a very strong narrative around the woman from I'm Still Here.
Fernanda Torres.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. So they're Fernanda Torres, I'm Still Here, Demi Moore, The Substance, Carla Sofia Gascon for Amelia Perez, Cynthia Erivo for Wicked, and Mikey Madison for Anora.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I think that, you know, voting is still ongoing. I think The Substance hurts a little bit from how long it has been out.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that's a long time to campaign.
Whereas
Bob
Dylan has been since Christmas or whatever.
Right. And the Francisca Torres, right? Is that her last name?
Yeah.
That movie was not widely available in the United States until very recently. So there might be some recency bias. Also, her mother won an acting Oscar and was the only other Best Supporting. She didn't win Best Actor. You'd have to look it up. I don't remember her name. She was not like widely famous in America.
You could lie and I believe you. I don't know any better.
But she's the only Brazilian actress her mother is the only Brazilian actress to ever win an acting Oscar.
Fernanda Montenegro.
Yes.
Who won for Love Me Forever or Never? Does that sound right? Sure. It says she won a Best Actress at Cannes for that, but I don't see. Yeah.
But so there's a strong narrative set up for her around that. I think that Demi is well liked. And has been circulating, and the performance is really strong. But I do wonder if some of those older folks in the Academy are not watching The Substance.
I think it's a little too wild.
It's pretty gross.
Yeah,
like, it goes in.
She's juicy.
Yeah.
She's juicy. I think I would love it if she would like win, but I was honestly shocked it even got nominated because it's nasty. It's wild. It's everywhere. It's juicy.
Yeah. It's just like straight up hag horror, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And I quite enjoyed it. But I would love for her to have that moment. Because I think, well, I'll say this relates to something else that I wanted to rant about, but which is the idea of a legacy Oscar or a legacy award.
I feel like that might swing people towards her because they like to do that especially like when an actor like reinvents themselves or like has kind of a comeback or
That's
whatever.
True.
Not that she ever really went away, but that, you know, she hasn't been in like a major
not in a starring role
so,
with a great degree of prominence. But my kind of mini rant about this idea of legacy awards is that people act like that idea is mutually exclusive with it also being the best. Mm-hmm. So this is a little bit of a circuitous path here, but I wanted to bring this up because Beyonce, and the Album of the Year award.
Let's do it, baby.
And at the Grammys, recently for Cowboy Carter, and a lot of people, cultural critics, journalists, people on social media have talked about her win as being equivalent to Scorsese's win for The Departed.
Okay.
And here's what I would like to say to that. They're right, but for the absolute wrong fucking reason.
Hey.
Look at the movies. People love to say, I can't believe Scorsese won for The Departed, like The Departed sucks. The Departed does not fucking suck, number one. The Departed is an excellent fucking movie, and the fact that it's based on infernal affairs does not make it any weaker of a production marvel. One. Two, look at the other movies that were nominated in 2007 for The Departed. It was like Letters from Iwo Jima, Little Miss Sunshine, some other stuff. None of it beats The fucking Departed. Okay? So what I need people to stop acting like that things can both have a long-term, like, kind of reconciliation narrative to them, right? Like, oh, we want to make sure that that person is awarded, that we have denied them awards in the past, maybe likely unjustly. They should have been awarded previously. They have made things that are high quality that should have been awarded in the past. That can be true. And also it can be true that the thing that they were awarded for is extremely high quality and was the best thing in that category.
That's the thing. It's probably like a correlation, not causation kind of thing, where it's like, of course, like that narrative is probably going to organically happen a couple of times, because as you go through a career, like it's easier to gain star power in the beginning of your career than it is towards the end, which is organic. That's just how people's brains work. But if something is a stunning enough product that it drags a career that has sagged in the middle back up, it's probably a pretty good artistic product. It probably has less to do with it's probably the Oscar came because this is an incredibly good product than the Oscar came, because this person, they just really wanted to, does that make sense? I know I'm just kind of sputtering at you.
I didn't name it specifically, but when I was talking earlier about movies that I rewatch, it's not only this movie, but there are years of my life where I literally have watched The Departed upwards of 50 times. And so I have like a particular axe to grind around this, but people saying like, oh, Beyonce winning Album of the Year is like The Departed, that being Scorsese's Oscar. And I'm like, because it's good.
Wait,
because they're motherfuckers. You motherfuckers.
You're telling me she's never won Album of the Year?
Correct.
Holy shit.
Isn't that crazy?
Okay,
yeah,
that is
and
crazy.
I'm not even saying, right? Me saying this is not to say that The Departed is Scorsese's best movie.
Sure.
I'm not saying that Cowboy Carter is Beyonce's best complete album. What I'm saying is that's not what Album of the Year is. That is not what Best Picture is.
Right.
It is, was it the best film of the year based on the other albums or films that it is nominated up against?
I have no idea how bad I want to clack my fan right now.
Like, driving me yelling in my car at various
God.
podcasts this week.
I feel God in this room.
Spot on with the fellow nominees that year being shit, because in addition to Little Miss Sunshine and Letters from Iwo Jima, Babel,
yes.
and The Queen.
Yeah. So this is, and I mean, they're fine. I'm not even saying Babel, fuck off, but the rest of them are fine. And, certainly I could maybe understand in 2007 why people were upset about Little Miss Sunshine. But if you look at the longevity and cultural impact of that movie versus and the quality of the film versus Scorsese's ability to continually create these incredibly tense gangster films that are memorable, they're quotable, they're beautifully scored, they're beautifully acted, they're just every element of them is totally in harmony.
I think that movie also gets the single best Mark Wahlberg performance of all time. Yeah.
Mark Wahlberg, he should be put out to pasture.
Yeah.
And we can keep two performances of him. That movie, which is, I imagine, pretty close to his actual personality, and Boogie Nights. And in all other instances, we release him out of the airlock of the plane that he should have been on during 9/11.
And okay, I'm so glad I'm so glad you brought that up because I think this new movie that he's in is like
I know, is his revenge fantasy.
Yeah, he's like, I told you motherfuckers I could have stopped 9/11. I'm
I
gonna make a whole
said the
goddamn
same
movie
thing
about
to
it.
Mike when I saw the trailer for the
Can I
first
also
time.
say when the trailer happens, and okay, he showed up bald that no one asked him to do this apparently, but he's like for the first part of the y'all don't know what I'm talking about. Mark Wahlberg is like a Wallace Shawn bald for this new Mel Gibson like Nazi plane movie or whatever the fuck it's about. But for the first half of the trailer, he's like wearing a hat or a disguise, and there's like a moment where like the shit's hit the fan and it cuts back and the hat isn't on, and it is. I laughed like an embarrassing volume at the theater.
Jump
like
scare.
I literally said jump scare to Jess when we were watching because it is one of the funniest things.
More
of
a jump scare than he usually is already.
Yeah, and it's just so funny that like, you know, that's not like that crazy for an actor to like radically change their appearance, but for this goddamn movie where he's like, I told y'all I could do 9/11, I could make not stop 9/11 is insane.
I shaved my head to prove it.
I shaved my head like Wallace Shawn, and
What a
I'm
creature.
in a Mel Gibson movie.
What a creature.
Jesus.
That's where he belongs.
Honestly, they're made for each other.
Absolutely. Stay over there together.
I
beg
do
you.
want to see Mark Wahlberg get Mel Gibson on his like daily
Under a
regimen
car?
that he.
Oh.
Have you ever seen Mark
sorry.
Wahlberg share his like daily schedule?
He
4 a.m.
he sleeps like 5.5 hours.
and
Yeah.
he schedules like
Prays
2
for 3.5.
pockets where he spends time with his family for like 30 minutes twice a day.
Yeah.
He's
works out
something,
4
dude.
times,
Yeah.
eats 3 eggs.
Dog. He's
Yeah,
what a
him and Mel
creature.
Gibson should like.
No.
They should like get on the same regimen.
No.
together.
Yeah, I
We don't-
agree. It'll kill him.
It's like Mel, I committed a hate crime. You've committed a hate
Let's do
crimes.
it.
Let's
Yeah.
be buddies.
That will kill
We do
Mel
not
Gibson.
need their powers combined. Nothing good will come
my God.
of that.
Jesus Christ.
I think he'll have a heart attack and die. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Make him work out to this. That would
I
be
love
so
it.
fun. Do
I
you
love
want to
it.
see what Jesus Christ actually thinks about your
About your shit ass
shit ass movie?
Damn.
Let's
meet him.
Let's
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
Let's see.
How about you have any other Oscars like, oh, I'm sad that didn't get nominated, or predictions or hopes?
Not even. I feel like Chalamet is gonna win because they've been trying to like coronate him for a minute.
I think that A Complete Unknown is going to win Best Picture.
Who? Complete Unknown's gonna win Best Picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only one that like
I would like Adrian Brody to win Best Actor.
I need to see that. I gotta set aside.
We'll see. I think the
7.5 hours to
AI
go to.
stuff, which does not personally offend me in any way, but I
In
think
Brutalist.
I forgot he existed.
they used AI to finesse the Hungarian. He speaks Hungarian in a lot of the
Oh,
movie.
okay.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so they used it to improve the dialect.
Okay, I'm sorry,
in
but like
post
That
production.
seems like not the worst
that
use
seems like
of
maybe
AI.
that's a
That
pretty
kind of
acceptable use
I understand.
of AI.
I'm not
like,
personally offended by it, but
I'm not
also
either.
there are a lot of people. I think that it's even less so. Generally, the stuff that I've been reading is that it's less about opposition to AI as a whole. Like, it's not really coming from that perspective. It's more coming from the perspective of, well, how do we know what his performance was,
Yeah.
right? Like, is
Oh,
he
interesting.
Did he
Okay.
like really do the accent well enough? Like, do we know like what's the version of him to the viewer in judging the performance? Is more like the critique
I don't know.
that. Right.
Did the
Well, none of
emotions
us are
come
Academy
across?
members.
Yeah,
so.
that's did the emotions come across. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's-
I mean,
I would say,
I thought he was fucking great
Yeah.
in it. And I think that he should win, but I agree it's possible. But I will say also the Oscars really don't super love giving awards to young men. They like giving awards to young women. It's a weird sex. It's
No,
like
yeah.
Oh,
it's
weird,
still
yeah.
sexism, but
but in a weird,
Yeah, well,
like-
it's like you need like women are only valuable when they're young, and
course,
the men are
yeah.
valuable when they're old.
Yeah.
Of course, they don't give them to older women. Older women are dead.
Yeah.
Which is also why I'm like really rooting for Demi
Except
Moore.
for Olivia
but-
Colman. They love to give Olivia Colman.
But I mean, she's
Yeah,
great.
yes.
Young ladies
if you're
and
a
Olivia
white
Colman.
old British lady, they love to give you a non-acting Oscar. But yeah, I would personally like to see Adrian Brody win that award. The category I am most sad about in terms of who is left out, however, is best directing. I think there are one extremely significant omission and then one that I understand why it happened, but sometimes I wish if someone released more than one movie in a year that they would view those movies collectively.
Who's up in there?
So who the first one is? The
about
first
Best
one where I'm
Director?
bummed, just baseline.
Jerry Seinfeld for the Pop-Tart movie.
No. So close though.
Damn. Now I committed to this game, and now I don't know the nominees
Okay.
well enough.
So I'm going to say, I'll say that one because I don't know that you're going to get.
Fargia?
She is nominated.
She is nominated?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
No, I'm going to, the first one is Ramel Ross, who directed Nickel Boys.
Okay.
I think it is an obvious feat technologically and of mode and form. And what I assume, in addition to racism, happened is that I think the archival context stuff maybe is just not jiving with some people in terms of understanding that as narrative direction is what my guess would be. But he should be the winner. Like, he should be in there and he should be the winner, in my opinion. And then the second one is someone who had 2 movies come out last year. And one of those movies was my favorite. I said was my favorite movie that came out last year.
Oh, fuck. I'm so bad at this.
I live in an autism bubble. You can't look at me for help. I don't know.
Luca. Okay, that's my
Your
dog's
dog.
name.
Yeah, I was gonna say your
so
dog.
when you showed it to me, Chantal was desperately trying to help me because my memory is terrible. She wrote Luca on a thing, and I thought she was referencing my dog, who's Lula. So I got a little confused and then made myself look like an idiot. Yes,
Luca,
so queer.
Luca Guadagnino.
Is that the one you're...
my thing is that if you look at his directing in both Queer and Challengers, there is no universe in which he should not be in. I think that Challengers, the directing is maybe not flashy enough to have hooked people, and I think also just the content of that movie is being positioned as like very young and frivolous. So okay, that's why that didn't happen there. And then Queer, I think, is just extremely off-putting movie for most people. Like, it is not an easy ride. The main character is abrasive and self-destructive, and I think that even though his directing, I think, is again masterful work by a master who has frankly never put out a bad movie, but that probably just boxing out some key constituents in terms of like, are they going to watch the film? I think there are probably a lot of people who are part of the Academy that did not watch Queer and would not watch Queer. But yeah, those are the 2 for me that I was like, damn, I really wanted to see him.
Who is actually nominated? I don't know.
Director?
Yeah.
I'm going to guess.
So we have Brady
Perez.
Brady Corbet for The Brutalist.
Okay.
We have Coraline Farge for The Substance.
This is very impressive. You are not the one with the computer in front of you.
We have James Golden for A Complete Unknown. I might be switching around for A Complete Unknown.
Yeah, it's
Mangold. Yeah, James Mangold. So that's 3.
I got it now.
Ooh.
75% is very good.
Okay.
I get 0.
13 noms.
Oh, Emilio Perez. I don't remember that guy's name, but he's French.
I believe the last one is one that we both like, though I do believe you said you did not like this movie. But it is a director we've covered on the pod before.
Wait, no. Is it the guy? No, it's not the guy that did Conclave.
Nope.
Who?
Sean Baker for Honora.
Oh, duh. Yes.
And am I right? You didn't like Honora?
It's not that I didn't.
I haven't seen it yet. But.
It left a nasty taste in my mouth. Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to rewatch it, at the same frequency I rewatch his other work. I didn't hate it. I just felt that, especially in the context of some revelations about his political views in his personal life, just made me think that he holds an animus towards sex workers that he has hidden by continually making movies about sex workers. But the way he treats Annie in
Honora,
in Honora, I find to be brutish and cruel.
Real. You're like working through something in the worst way possible. Yeah, I get that.
It's also, I think, like trying to understand the ride that the film is taking you on, where it's like, it kind of has this like black comedy Coen Brothers-esque feel. It feels very slapstick at times. It's extremely heightened. And its emotions. And then at the end, it's just like bad things happen to her and she is emotionally broken down. And it feels like he's punishing her is how I felt the movie went. Whereas like even in Red Rocket, have you seen Red Rocket?
I have not seen Red Rocket.
Okay. In Red Rocket,
that's
where
sex
he's
worker too, right?
Yes,
That's
he
crazy.
repeatedly makes movies about sex workers.
That almost all of his movies, because
and I know I've said this
and
before
Florida
when we
Project.
talked about Nora, right? When we talked about Nora, like right after we watched it, but when we covered the Florida Project on the pod very early on, I raised similar concerns about the way he wrote the mom,
and specifically those scenes.
Yes, specifically the scenes with the young girl.
And that's the least explicit. I haven't seen those other two, but I imagine the like sex work portrayed in Florida Project is the least explicit sex work.
Everything's kind of behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So he's doing something that is like, I acknowledge you as he's not doing the dehumanizing thing that we often see with sex work and sex workers on film. He's not doing the liberal white knight, I'm going to save you or you need to be saved. He's doing this thing that feels a little sicker to me in some ways, which is like, I acknowledge you as a person. This is I so imbue you with agency that like things that happen to you are your fault. Like this is the direction and choices that you've taken for yourself.
Yeah. Humanizing a person just to like play dolls and smash them together and watch them suffer.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm humanizing. I have to humanize you because what I want is your suffering.
Yeah,
it's awful. Terrible.
Yeah, or like there's some kind of odd, like titillation or something from
I do feel like Tangerine is a very like, I don't know, maybe you feel the same way about Tangerine, but I feel like Tangerine is very
he's kind
humanizing towards the sex workers in it.
And it's not uniform, right? Like I think Annie as crafted in Honora is not a flat character. I mean, you understand her motivations, you can see like her emotional trajectory. It's not like there's no heart in the film, or it's not like there's no soul in her. It's just the writing choices to drive her into the ground. I just didn't care for it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's crazy to like, when it comes to art, especially like visual, emotional art, like movies are, in a lot of cases, there are exceptions, obviously, but not very many. It's not crazy to sort of sit back on your heels and think about why this person made this at all.
Right.
And
They're
I feel
intentional
like
choices.
when you actively do that, sometimes it can lead you to dark rooms.
Yeah. And the fact that all of his movies,
that's weird.
That is
weird.
That is a little weird. Yeah,
you need to talk to a therapist and not film it.
Yeah.
Well, and like again, I don't think that it's necessarily fair or correct to try and make direct parallels between someone's political beliefs and the art that they produce. Things can be messier than that, but like in the last year, it's become very clear that he's like an extreme Zionist, like an extreme Zionist. And so I think that when we understand Zionism and its, constitutive elements as being in part about like inherent rights, some people as being inherently valuable and some people not being inherently valuable, that there should be state intervention that enforces those boundaries. Like all of that shit, I think comes to bear on how he is talking about or depicting sex workers.
Yeah, you're admitting that you're willing to like, I know, put
that
these
some
people
lives
in a box,
that some lives mean less to you. Yes. Yeah.
So like why?
So it's hard for me to
totally
not reinterpret it. And we'll say like I'll see his the next movie he makes, I will see it. I'm not, but also like I fucking watch Chinatown, right? Like I am not a toss artist out because I disagree with them. But also to go back to the Amelia Perez thing, right? Like let's have a robust conversation around it on the basis of what is present textually. Yeah. And not just like make shit up. So after all of our rambling, meandering conversations about the Oscars.
The Academy's listening, so we need to let them know what we think.
And Beyonce and The Departed, etc. We're gonna dig into talking about Rocky Horror Picture Show, but before we do, I want to talk a little bit about evolution of the language. So we're not launching a full series around this right now, but intend to over the next couple months sprinkle in movies that reflect on the history of gender variance, gender deviance, and the policing of gendered expectations and expressions on film, of course. And so to set the stage for the first of these discussions on Rocky Horror Picture Show, we take up historian Susan Stryker's 2008 book, Transgender History, to define some terms and provide background context. Here is what Dr. Stryker writes about the word transvestite on page 16 of her book. Quote, "This is an old word, coined in 1910 by the German sexologist Magnus Hirschfeld." Sidebar, you may remember that we talked about him during our The Damned episode during our Italian fascism series.
I'm a dumb guy that would not know Magnus Hirschfeld, but when you said it, I was like, I know that name.
I've heard that name. Okay, we're back in the quote. He used it to describe the erotic urge for disguise, which is how he understood the motivation that led some people to wear clothing generally associated with a social gender other than the one assigned to them at birth. For Hirschfeld, transvestites were one of many different kinds of sexual intermediaries, including homosexuals and hermaphrodites, who occupied a spectrum between pure male and pure female. Initially, this term was used in much the way that transgender is used now, to convey the sense of a wide range of gender variant identities and behaviors. End quote. Dr. Stryker goes on to say that in the last century, the term has fallen out of favor and mostly refers to men who prefer to wear gender atypical clothes, but do not engage in other forms of bodily modification or medical transition. In contrast, at the start of her tome, she defines transgender as, quote, movement across a socially imposed boundary away from an unchosen starting place, end quote. Across the 1950s, the 1960s, and the 1970s, especially relevant for the movie we'll be talking about today, transvestite evolved from exclusively referring to social or sexual practices to a political identity category. Stryker prints part of a trans liberation newsletter article from 1971 that read, quote, "The oppression against transvestites and transsexuals of either sex arise from sexist values, and this oppression is manifested by homosexuals and heterosexuals alike in the form of exploitation, ridicule, harassment, beatings, rapes, murders, and the use of us as shock troops and sacrificial victims. We reject all labels of stereotype, sick, or maladjusted, and defy any attempt to repress our manifestations as transvestites or transsexuals." End quote. So some themes that I'd like to draw out of that for us is that, one, as we go into talking about Rocky Horror Picture Show, that terms are historically contingent. They reflect a combination of social, political, and economic conditions, scientific consensus, or emerging conflict in scientific consensus, collective behavior and the resulting social movements, linguistic dynamics, and more. Multiple terms may exist simultaneously, and there may be internal disagreement within a group about the best fitting term. The other theme I'd like to point out here is the commingling of gender and sexuality, right? That the idea that this very classic and feminist thought, right? Like that quote unquote, a homosexual is oppressed because they do not fit into gendered expectations about who they would love, right? Like the idea being that like inherent in the idea of a man is that a man should love a woman. And so if you're a man who does not love a woman, then the homophobia against you is in part, at least, also gender bias. That said, Craig.
Yes.
You wanna get us going on the movie itself?
Sure. I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. And like I said in the intro, the last time I saw it was here in Tallahassee at a screening at Fire Betty's, hosted by none other than Indie Sinclair. And it was a lot of fun. But I just wanted to, first off, can you give me a rundown of give us a rundown of what is a Indie Sinclair hosted Rocky Horror Picture Show all about?
Well, it's interesting. It's one of the more interesting mediums that I get to do because there is so much history behind it. With my main job is I'm a burlesque performer and producer. That is mainly what I do. I produce burlesque shows, which is like completely all my court, right? So the way that I want to do it, the kind that I want to do, how I want to run my shows, how many performers, what kind of performers, like all of that is in my wheelhouse and all of that is up to me. Whereas people have been doing screenings of this movie since the 70s for 50 years now. They have been doing screenings of these movies and that sort of as a collective has the idea of what that looks like and what that entails has sort of evolved is one giant weird mass. And so all of us that run these do things very, very similarly. We kind of all hit the same beats. I'm friends with the person that runs the Rich Weirdos down in Orlando. They were the ones that did the giant ones at Universal Studios City Walk.
Oh, that's cool. On
yeah.
That huge
like we all kind of like we have drastically varying degrees of capital and like how nice our sets are and stuff. But for the most part, we all kind of do it the same way. Like a lot of us, I think the most recent development in how these tend to run is outwardly acknowledging sort of the politics of it at this point. That is probably honestly the newer development. And a lot of the younger generation of people that are running these will look that audience dead in the face and say, here is why we still care about this. Here is why is it important? Okay, we can put that away now and, yell slurs at the screen and have a wonderful time. But that is honestly probably the newest development. But for the most part, like we all kind of do the same thing. Like we put on our dumb little costumes. We do the pre-show games, which are just debaucherous for fun because that's the point. And I really, really appreciate that all of us sort of have this unifying factor of the exact same theme as Rocky Horror, which is political and people don't like to acknowledge that it is just this like debauchery for debauchery's sake, as a method of freeing the human spirit and letting yourself have that. That is probably the through line through all of them.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. I was reading a little bit about how the cult following began and the screenings began, but that it does seem like saying that you all kind of do it the same way, but there's like, from what I understood, kind of almost a community effort to like build off of
yeah.
Because I was, I don't remember his name. Maybe you know him, but the guy that was like in New York doing the original screenings that like
I should know
came
his
up with some of the phrases that would like then get repeated by somebody over here and then built off
Absolutely.
of. So I think that's kind of like a fun, people that
the callbacks are like probably the most intense aspect of like stacking that Rocky Horror Picture Show has. I have created some here in Tallahassee that now the Rich Weirdos do because I called Valerie Von Voss, shout out Valerie, and was like, hey, we did this and it fit and it was really funny and the audience really liked it. We have a Chapel Roan callback now.
Ooh,
because I thought it would be funny.
How's that go?
When he rips the sheet off of Eddie during the dinner scene, we started singing the Hot to Go song. And awesome. I did it once because I thought it'd be funny. And I got the whole cast to do it with me and the audience lost it. And so I texted Val the next day and was like, if you want to use this fits perfectly. And it's a banger. Yeah. And so we all casts will have like legacy callbacks that they do that either came from somebody. I've written a ton for Cheap Thrills that I think a lot of the members of Cheap Thrills don't know are just mine at this point, where I thought that would be funny. So I made y'all say it and now all of us do. And it's been in the cast forever.
Is there anything that kind of thinking about the opposite of that, like stuff that maybe you used to do or that you inherited or heard from other folks that you have retired or moved on, or you feel like doesn't connect with the audience because of generation or whatever?
There's definitely like the larger chunk of that category is just, there's a ton of pop culture references that people just won't know anymore. Like I can't think of a granted, can you think of the things that you cannot think of anymore?
Right.
Unfortunately, to a capacity, but like there's like actors and references to music that the kids don't know. We used to sing a portion of Dark Refrain when he says it in the movie. They don't know what the fuck that is anymore. So that kind of died on its own. Then there's also like the super hyper political things, because there is an aspect of Rocky Horror Picture Show that you have to be kind of careful with, because there is an aspect of sometimes a debauchery for debauchery's sake can at times get translated into offense for offense's sake. And so we have had some pretty spicy ones that like older members of our cast used to do that we kind of just don't really do anymore, because I'm a comedian and I'm an MC. And that is what I do with Rocky Horror Picture Show as well. And my rule of thumb, and the rule of thumb that a lot of other MCs, at least that I have worked with, use, is you have to be cognizant of who you're punching at when you make jokes that are at people's expense, which is a lot of Rocky Horror Picture Show. And so there are some that I have quietly let die, because it's like, okay, we had a cis white man in our cast that thought that this was funny because it was funny to him at the back of a school bus. This group that this is punching at is not really who we need to be punching at right now. Like there's a lot of that can be, I think that when you say debauchery for debauchery's sake, that appeals to queer people, because we often, granted, even the root of our words come from straight people trying to put a diagnosis label on something they view inherently sexual. And a lot of the bricks at the bottom of how we've built our identity come from, this was not an identity. This was like a kink. And it's really, really hard to get away from that label. And so I think that with Rocky Horror Picture Show in particular, give yourself over to absolute pleasure, like debauchery for debauchery's sake, obscenity for obscenity's sake is not hollow, because we have been labeled as something inherently obscene our entire lives, because that's where the root of that identity comes from. And I think that when you start to introduce people that have not lived that experience, we'll say, into the fray, cis straight white men, they have sort of a problem distinguishing what is debauchery through like free for all expression because you've been already put in that category. So working through it can kind of help you, and what's just distasteful. It can be really hard for them to distinguish that. So when they make callbacks, it can kind of sometimes be like, who's the butt of that joke, baby?
Free your spirit at whose expense?
Fun or no? Okay. Like you got to kind of reel them in a little bit. You also have to pay attention to the times, because we definitely did Nazi callbacks for Dr. Scott, because it was funny to make fun of Nazis, and now there are Nazis again. So that's less fun because they're on television in the White House. So that's drastically, it does not have the same kind of like irony or like parody to yell Sig Heil when this German character comes on as a jab at Operation Paperclip. Because there's Nazis again. Like
Elon
you
Musk
have
is fucking doing
exactly.
it at the inauguration.
So that loses kind of some of its fun. So there's like the very organic, like nobody knows who that actor is anymore. But there's also sort of the like, this isn't really in line with kind of what we want to get out of this experience and what we want other people to feel freedom through.
Yeah, straight white men famously don't understand the concept of like how language works in that way sometimes. Like, it smacks of me like the same like straight white dude that is mad that he can't say the N-word.
Of course. Yeah,
it's
totally.
Like just the idea that like, when we say it, it means something, and when you say it, not only does it have a different effect, but you mean it in a way that we know how you mean it. Like that kind of shit.
And that's the thing,
like,
right?
You don't want to give the ammo to.
There's Rocky Horror Picture Show gets drawn into. I'm so glad you actually started with those definitions, because that's a really great talking point. Like Rocky Horror Picture Show, because it has outdated language, Rocky gets pulled into the like slur reclamation. Conversation a lot, because it does use transvestite, and there is an aspect to that I think when the universal experience in the room that you are building your art on top of is oppression. Somebody that has not been oppressed by anything will have an incredibly hard time getting the joke, which means that they don't understand what the joke even is. And so it's, we've reclaimed the T-slur intensely to the point that like a lot of my trans friends aren't even bothered by it at this point because they say it all the time. And there's an aspect of when a white dude gets really, really mad that he can't say the N-word, there's a part of me that's like, well, they're reclaiming it. And then when they're like, well, why can't I reclaim it? I want to just be like, who are they reclaiming from, baby? Who are they? Who reclaiming from? Who baby doll? You? That's why. Because you're on the other team already. Yeah, like it gets pulled into that slur reclamation conversation a lot because it does use outdated language.
Yeah. I do want to just share a personal experience that I had. The only part of the screening I did not enjoy.
Oh no.
Was you made it very clear. There's a scene where they throw rice, and you made it very clear. Let's make sure we go up and high with that
and
rice.
Back.
And
like your legs after the show.
That there was she could not have been like out of high school. It was a very young girl right in front of me who was very nervous about throwing the rice and was like,
throw it directly into your eyes?
Practicing like this, and then did it and could not have done it more just into my whole face and head, to the point the next day I was at work and was like, what the fuck? And like some rice came out of my hair. It was like, if it wouldn't have been me, it would have been great. How funny, she tried to do it the right way and could not have done it more. Just like, I'm going to throw it in this guy's face.
But what a beautiful human
It was nice. Looking back,
act of sacrifice of you to be the butt of a joke that everybody else can find funny. That's beautiful to me.
It was lovely.
I was so scared for a second. I was like, oh my God, what did I say? Because I'm a stream of consciousness comedian. So I say stuff sometimes and then I'm like, oh no. No, this is not the crowd. Oh no.
Honestly, because like I said, I had never been... one, I haven't seen the movie in a really, really long time.
Sure.
And two, I'd never been to a screening before. I was a little nervous because, typically at a movie, I'm a everybody shut up and let me watch this thing. But no, it was
that's not the case.
It was like, well, I knew that going in. I did not expect.
I love the idea of Craig going to a Rocky Horror Picture Show screening.
Hey,
excuse me.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna call the manager. My wife would do that. Not at a Rocky Horror screening show, but she is the first one to go get the manager at the movie theater when people won't shut up.
Well, people should shut the fuck up.
They should shut the fuck up.
People were talking. There was two old women gabbing their motherfucking asses off at the end of Nickel Boys when we went to go see it.
That's crazy.
And I'm like, literally someone is dying right now. Their grandmother is crying. Like, will you shut the fuck up?
Beverly?
After they did it like the third time, Chantel and I synchronized went, shh.
Oh my fucking God. That's the problem, is that I'm fucking mean. And I'll lean up there and be like, Beverly, Susan, I understand that death is coming for you any day now. So this is not that stunning for you to see death on the big screen, but some of us have a few years to go and I need you to shut the fuck up or I'm going to drag you out of here by your fucking Achilles.
I can't, for the exact same reason. I can't do it because I can't do it. Oh. I can't say shush. I don't know why. It is like just boils. And then this is the last time I ever did it because I got so fucking embarrassed that people were at the movie theater talking and I was getting so annoyed because like I would be the one that would be like, shut up or whatever. Like if it was like really obnoxious and they were talking and finally I went, shut the fuck up.
Yes.
And then I stood up and saw that they were leaving anyways and they were like 12.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh, okay. This is great.
I must share this. I won't share who it happened to, but one of my family members was in a movie a couple of years ago at this point in time. And someone, like a couple, was loudly talking and they like shushed them a few times. And they continued loudly talking. And my family member went up and like approached them because they were not next to them in the theater and said, will you please be quiet? And the person dumped a full bucket of popcorn on my family member's head.
Oh my God.
That's an overreaction, I'd say.
You know what? At least you stand on business. I think that's fun. If I've come back around to that's so extreme that I think it's cunt.
Yeah.
That's fun. Oh my God. At least you're standing on business.
But
I also think I understand that it's usually my job to intervene in places like this because I have the golden ratio, which is that I worked in corporate America and I taught kids, I taught high school. So like, I'm very good at doing like the corporate nice thing in a way that does not feel cold, and I'm funny. So it's usually my job to go, and people hate conflict. I will slither up there and just be like, hi, oh my God, I'm so sorry to bother you. We can I know you didn't think so, but we can hear you like all the way back there. It's crazy. And I have never done that and had the experience not be like, okay. And then they're dead silent for the rest of the movie.
That is a skill and an ability that I'm jealous of.
And I use it. I'm in front of house.
You're missing out on free popcorn, apparently.
Yeah, I'm going to, joke's on you. I'm going to turn my head and open my mouth. What are you going to do now?
I'm learning a lot of different ways I can handle this in movies.
Conflict management through snack theft, even.
I will say, since we're on this kick, that my wife and I saw Companion at AMC last week, and the two weirdest motherfuckers of all time sat next to us. They had so much food that was not purchased at the thing. And it was like...
you're moving in. Gotcha.
It was Tupperwares and aluminum foil, like shit that was noisy. And then the weirdest part was, okay, this woman twice got up to go to the bathroom and was doing that polite, like...
The shuffle, the sad shuffle.
But it was the weirdest. It was like, if you've ever seen like a nerdy like Naruto kid do the like.
Yes.
It was like it looked like that. Like trying to. She was doing it. I feel bad now making fun of them because
you're not making fun of them. You're sharing an experience.
They were trying to be like that. I'm moving quickly to get out of the way, and it was the
so
most
quickly you can't see me through the trees.
Yes, it was very weird.
That's incredible.
It was very strange.
That's fucking incredible.
Also, Companion, kind of a letdown. It's okay. It's okay. It's fun.
I am looking forward to what the next stage of her career is.
Oh my God.
I really like her. Is her name Sophie Thatcher?
Yep.
Yeah, Sophie Thatcher. I like Yellow Jackets. She is one of the better parts of Heretic, a movie I didn't really care for very much.
Same.
I love her voice. She's a great, velvety, rich voice. Yeah, I hope they put her in something good someday. Because I'll see it.
I like you so much. I want you to be able to do better.
Yeah.
You're better than this.
I haven't watched season 2 of Yellow Jackets. I've heard maybe it goes a little bit downhill, but I think she's great in
But
Yellow
it's
Jackets.
not the acting that goes downhill.
Yeah, sure.
It's just that they're like... I mean, let's say this. Anytime you take... a television show and go, I'm going to put the young people here, and then also we're looking at the older people over here. It's going to create nonsense. Mm-hmm. It's just hard to maintain all those different plot lines and bring them together without insanity happening.
Bring it back to Rocky Horror, and I feel like this is a question that I ask Hal a lot, and especially lately I've asked it a bunch, and I don't know why I'm so curious about it, but do you remember the first time you ever saw Rocky Horror?
Yes, I do. I absolutely
How old?
do.
What was the scenario?
Was maybe 13, maybe 13 or 14.
That seems like a great age to see it.
I think my dad just kind of clocked the kind of person I was going to be very early. Because my dad, it was like a coming of age thing. He was like, you're going to love this. And I've been waiting to show you this, show this to you.
That's really sweet.
And so we watched it. I watched it with my childhood best friend. She absolutely hated it. I loved every second of it, and it became my identity for the next 3 years. I absolutely loved it. And yeah, my dad clocked the kind of person that I was very, very early, and supplied me a lot of cultural things like that.
That's nice. I also remember when I first saw it because, and I think I may have told this story before, but my parents had this entertainment unit that had was really tall and had an alcove on it. And one time when I was little, I think I did tell this when we watched Freddy's Revenge, Nightmare on Elm Street 2. They
Two
had
is the gay one.
They had two movies that were in unmarked VHS cassettes with no boxes that was like on top of the entertainment unit. I don't know if their intention was to hide it from me, but I always assumed that that's why they were there. And it was Nightmare on Elm Street and Rocky Horror Picture Show. And I watched it one summer the first summer that they let me stay home by myself, and thought, I was like, I'm bad. I'm getting away with something now.
Did you enjoy it? Did you not know what's happening?
Yeah.
Hard to follow. A little hard to follow.
And is like a little like, like raised like a Southern Baptist Christian. New
ideas.
Well, my parents were like always liberal, so like I was never like, I didn't have the like hateful indoctrination.
Nice.
But
Love that.
But this was something I was not. This was a world I did not recognize or understand. So as a kid, I probably didn't have the appreciation for it. I liked that it was weird. I remember that.
Totally.
I was like, I saw a weird movie, but
yeah, totally.
Yeah. How do you have were you an early adopter?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is one of those movies that fits in there with stuff my mom exposed me to pretty young. You know, it's like, oh, let's watch Cronenberg's The Fly, and then we'll watch this. But yeah, I think it speaks, like, one of the beautiful things about Rocky Horror Picture Show is that it can be a vector into the person that you're already becoming, or the person that you want to become, or the community that you haven't found yet, and that is true in a variety of settings. That can be true when somebody, a family member shows it to you because they know you're going to like it, or you show it to, or you watch it with a friend, at 2 a.m. In your college dorm room, or you go to a showing and you drag a friend who's never been in a public setting, has never seen drag, doesn't have a vocabulary for any of this. That's my favorite. So I think that's the real beauty of it, is that it's a mirror.
Oh yeah. Well, it's a window, and I do this speech. This is sort of related, I promise. I know we're running long already. I do this very specific speech at almost every single show I do. I don't really do it at Fire Buddies because I lovingly, like, not Rocky, but my like Fire Buddies burlesque show is lovingly like a little bit more of a corporate product. The Crypt Tease is my baby, and that's in a gay bar. Like, I started that show in a gay bar. I've been producing in that gay bar for 6 years, and that is inherent to its identity. And I do this speech every single time I do that show. And for the most part, every single time I do Rocky, that was born from, we used to do Rocky Horror Picture Show Shadowcast at, the Student Life Cinema at FSU. We did that every year. And I realized maybe like 2 or 3 years into me being the MC and like running that entire thing, that is the most, like, the highest number of young people that I will ever have on the horn all at one time, that were all drawn in by something like this. And I realized, like, 10 minutes before I was walking out with a microphone in front of them, because it's like 300 kids, I have to say something. Oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm going to say something. And went out and for the first time talked about, I understand that you have a ton of windows into the lives and the lifestyles that you want to have, more than we have ever had at any time in history. But you have to understand, as you watch this and as you kind of revel in the chaos of this, and as you let this sink into you as an experience, for a lot of people, for a lot of queer people, this was their first time seeing anything like themselves on the big screen in a way that wasn't inherently awful. Like, even, we're not talking about like Dressed to Kill. Like, this was their first window into, oh, I've had this impulse my entire life, and I didn't know this existed. I didn't know you could do this. And it was incredibly important for me, as I became sort of in charge of that company, that these generations of kids that were pulling through this show, that are going just to have a fun night out with their friends, sort of have a little bit of that historical context of, there's a reason why we are still doing the Time Warp 50 years later. And it's not because it's a silly, goofy movie. There are lots and lots of weird movies that do not have the same critical, there's no critical acclaim, that do not have the same cultural acclaim that Rocky Horror Picture Show does. And people's, if that unifying, like, first experience with, like, oh my God, there are people like me, is a huge, if not all of that cultural impact. That's why we're still doing this 50 years later. But that speech that I like off riff, like flung at those kids with 10 minutes of prep time is now a speech I do literally every single show.
And it was like, I remember seeing, just speaking on the like kids and the endearing like charm of it.
Bless them.
It was a young crowd, which was like kind of cool.
It often is. And I'm really, really grateful that it has this kind of like coming of age kind of context to it, because it means that I get like a fresh crop of people to say these things to like every time. And I call it the dinosaur speech that I do literally every single time, because I'm talking to mostly queer people, and at the Crypt Tease especially, I'm talking that's high gay people, and the whole audience goes, woo! Like it's all gay people. And with the kids, like a lot of them just got to college. It's their first time away from their parents. Maybe it's their first time away from their family. Like this might genuinely for a lot of them be their first foray into anything like that. It's a lot of their like first time dressing up, like a first time in heels. Like it's a lot of that stuff. And it's the gist of the speech that I give literally every single time is, especially through the lens of Rocky Horror Picture Show, we've always been here. We're going to stay here. We have always, clung on to the things that make us happy and use them as gathering points and use them as community fixtures to find each other. We always will. And you are going to live to see it. You're going to live to see the dinosaurs die out. So keep going is a lot of why. And that was born out of Rocky Horror Picture Show.
That's awesome. I love that. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. There's things to live for, even if it's just lips.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as someone that was in undergrad 15 years ago and went to many renditions of Rocky Horror Picture Show at the ASLC on FSU's campus, many friends, especially including many like trans feminine or trans women friends, where that show is like the first place that they wore a dress in public, so it's for every component that is like retrograde or doesn't quite fit in or fully mesh with, our ideological understandings and definitions and identities now. It facilitates a key setting, and those settings, as we know, are like much at risk of being threatened, forcibly shut down, disappearing, being dangerous. So I think, for that reason alone, it's meaningful to continue to hold on to the traditions.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's definitely, and this is sort of also why I like made sure to acknowledge the kids, especially at FSU, is to go ahead and get ahead of that. What I want is to sort of facilitate this understanding of, okay, like we can view past this like hard label of problematic. Mm-hmm. Don't let your thinking stop there. It's okay to acknowledge that what this piece of art or this whatever it is gave us as a community is larger than any linguistic change or anything that might be wrong with it now. I say that in air quotes like that. And that was like an idea I really, really wanted to facilitate before we even pressed play when I started taking over as the MC, because I've only been our MC for like maybe the last 5 years.
Would you say our MC of
our
Crypties or
of Cheap Thrills, because the MC is like a very, very deliberate position with us, really, and it's usually the person that runs the pre-show and like does all the talking during the pre-show. So I'm the one that's making people kiss strangers.
Okay,
but
did that happen at ours?
Absolutely, it did. Because I
asked you. Yeah, I asked you what games they played.
I can tell you.
You were like,
you
what?
went for Halloween. Is that correct?
I don't think so.
Were you like waiting in line for a drink? You missed something?
Give me a timeline.
That probably happened.
Give me a timeline. When were you?
I'm so bad. Time has progressed.
I feel like it probably was around Halloween.
Okay, then maybe Halloween.
Then that was because we did the only showing we did in fall of last year is our Halloween show. Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, I did the.
I might have been getting a drink for that one.
I did the testicle relay, which I often do.
Yep.
Which you remember that?
I do remember that.
Okay, yeah, I do the testy relay where
honestly, I know what probably happened.
You
might have
blacked it
been
out.
like, all right. You were like, all right.
You want to do a fugue state?
You
Woke up
guys are
10
gonna
minutes
have
later.
to interact with each other for this one or something. And I was like, oh god, I'm gonna have to do something with the stranger. Let me go get a beer.
Real?
It's probably
You ran
what
away.
happened. I was a little scared. Probably.
Yeah, I do that. Not me.
I was a little
I can't
scared.
do this.
Sometimes.
Oh yeah, I remember my first shadow cast. I remember my first time watching the movie, but I also remember my first shadow cast, and that was with Cheap Thrills. That was with the shadow cast I'm with now. It was in 2015. I just moved here for college, and I had to kiss a mom in front of her kids. It was sick. She had both of her kids there. It was
cool.
wild. But
well,
I love doing those pre-show games. But I've only been RMC for like 5 years. The Rocky Horror Picture Show shows are gnarly on me. Like I perform for a living. I do this literally is my full-time job, and there is no show that I am more destroyed after than Rocky.
Oh, I mean, like it's a high energy
I'm running
job.
around the whole time, but when you put it into context, and it is funny how many people don't actually realize that it is the same person, because I do change and like change my hair and change my makeup and change everything, but I run the entire show. I'm one of our managers. My other manager is Felix Velasquez. He's incredible. I am our manager, so I'm making sure everything is happening. And then I am our MC, so I'm introducing the show. I'm doing the pledge. I'm doing all the pre-games and riffing and getting the audience warmed up and comfortable and not freak the fuck out. So I do that for like 40 minutes, and then I immediately run, sprint, change, and then I come back as Frankenfurter. So like these shows just like beat my ass.
Yeah.
Like they beat me to death. But it's so worth it because of the impact that I have. Getting recognized around Tallahassee, I almost always get recognized for Frankenfurter before I get recognized for anything else.
Oh,
which is hysterical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm on stage like once or twice a month in Tallahassee at least. And I have been for the last like 3 years. But nope. I saw you as Frankenfurter. And I'm like, I know, sweetheart. I know most of this town has.
Can I say, and now I'm getting like kind of embarrassed to be like, I actually saw you one time, but I remembered you from a different show because I remember you did a show where you stapled money to yourself. And I was like, that was gnarly as shit.
Yeah. So, okay, let me flash out some context here.
Okay. I was hoping you would.
Rocky Horror Picture Show is just about myself. Like Rocky Horror was actually my gateway drug into literally everything else. I went and saw, I was in school for neuroscience. Like I was going to work in a lab for the rest of my life. And I went to Rocky and loved it and missed performing because I was a performer in high school, and went and joined the Rocky Shadow cast when I was like, I don't know, 19, I don't know. And that was my gateway then into burlesque, which is my full-time job now. And then that burlesque was my gateway into sideshow because I'm also a sideshow entertainer. And all of these things kind of... There's like a little cabaret, like Kiki circle where like all of us kind of run in the same circles, and it's like drag, professional wrestling, sideshow performers, burlesque performers, sometimes strippers if they want to hang out and join the party, and then sometimes like cabaret singers. Like we all kind of run in the same, we run under the same big top, we'll say. And so I was exposed to sideshow, and now I am really renowned in Florida for mixing burlesque and sideshow often.
That's cool.
And so, yeah, that makes sense. I'm a sideshow performer. And so, yes, I will take a staple gun and I will let people staple money to me. That is the second most common thing that I get recognized for.
All right, well, then.
It's pretty cool. We are both wrestling fans, and I love hardcore wrestling in particular.
Spirits.
So
Kindred spirits. We use our body to sell
exciting.
a fantasy.
Yes.
And that's what it is. It's like drag, wrestling, professional specifics, not like real wrestling, specifically professional wrestling,
right.
And then like burlesque performers. We use our body to sell a fantasy, to make art.
Which, I mean,
speaking of spectacle,
Speaking of spectacle.
Jey Uso, I got to throw it out there. Oh, you don't like Jey Uso?
I just don't care.
Real.
But it's real as fuck.
Let me give you the saddest. Yeet.
Do
you know that Yeet is
yes, I do. It's wild.
AEW stan more than a
Here's
WWE.
what happened. I watched the Women's Royal Rumble. I fell asleep on the couch. I woke up and Jey Uso's winning. No, thank you. I go back to sleep.
I love Jey Uso. I'm sorry.
Real.
I love Jey Uso. I'm here for Jey Uso, the Rhea Ripley Jey Uso love thing that's happening. There's no two hotter people in the WWE than Jey Uso and Rhea Ripley. Which one are you challenging?
Of course not Rhea Ripley. Of course I'm
Jey
not
Uso?
challenging. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. I got to stew on that.
My consumption of wrestling is very aesthetic. Like I
sure.
don't actually watch a lot of the wrestling matches. What I will watch is like a 4-hour YouTube video detailing like the entire storyline of this one wrestler up until now. That's what I really fuck with. I like that. I like it I like it as theater.
Do you know who Effie is?
I think so.
I think so. He lived in Tallahassee for a long time. He now lives in Atlanta.
Okay.
He's an independent wrestler. He's a gay man who has centered that in his wrestling.
Love
his branding is wrestling is gay. He puts on a show. He's done it now for I think 5 or 6 years, called Effie's Big Gay Brunch. Usually,
yes, I do. My friend has done that show a couple times. Yes, okay,
It's a
I do know.
wrestling show?
Yes,
yes. My friends have done that.
I've seen it. We saw it in Chicago once, but it is worth
it's incredible.
His social media presence and his videos. He does a lot of streaming and stuff. Is worth engaging. Yes. If you don't necessarily want to watch a lot of wrestling, but you're
here for it.
You're wrestling curious.
You're wrestling, yeah, absolutely.
He's a good entry point for that.
That's incredible. Cool. Yeah,
does he still do it like in town or only in Atlanta?
No, I mean, he is primarily associated with GCW, Game Changer Wrestling, which is based in the Northeast. Okay. So as is true with many indie wrestlers, they just travel constantly.
Yeah, totally.
So he's based out of Atlanta now, but most of his shows are
that's how you make money. You have to if you want to have a career. That's what I do, for fuck's sake. I'm based here, but I travel literally every weekend to go do shows.
But he's worth investigating.
Yes, that's excellent.
He is perfectly in the intersection of all of those things.
That Venn diagram is a circle.
Yes,
no, for sure.
I do want to talk about the cast in Rocky Horror Picture Show really quick because first off, what struck me the most watching it this most recent time is that there's no Tim Curry's the coolest fucking dude ever.
He is.
There's just I know this is. He is so magnetic in the movie, and there's
unreal.
There's certain performances where you're waiting for the person to come back because there's just such a draw to him, and he is like that in a lot of shit, but this especially is crazy.
I think he is so magnetic, and there is so much energy there.
Just charisma for days.
It's unreal. Frank was the first. I on accident have ended up portraying Tim Curry twice. Not just as Frankenfurter, but
I want to try this. The hotel guy from Home Alone 2.
The Hungarian guy from Congo.
Fucking fantastic guesses. It's actually the very short clip of him going space from whatever. No, I'm kidding.
Clue.
Thank you. Yeah, it was Clue. We did a Clue burlesque show, and I hosted the show as him doing the butler character.
Amazing.
And it was awesome.
That's great.
But yeah, he is absolutely unreal. He is truly the backbone of that, and I think that. Excuse me. I think that it's because I'm bouncing next to your shelf. I think that if it was somebody other than Tim Curry, I don't know if it would have the same staying power that it does. Not just because his performance is incredible, but because that Frankenfurter could have very, very, very easily been a forgettable joke character. All things on paper, that is an incredibly forgettable joke character. But I think Tim Curry plays him so genuine in some moments that that is what gives it its staying power. Without
sacrificing the joke character part too, because he's funny as shit in it as well.
Yes,
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But the joke is that he's so out of control and diabolical.
Right.
The joke is not really that he's like a man in heels.
Right.
And the emotional depth that he still gives that performance, especially during I'm going home, I think that very emotional, genuine human core that he gives to that insane character is what a lot of people have sort of been able to attach their queerness to over the years and feel comfortable and safe doing that, because it doesn't feel like the joke is on them. It just feels like the joke is that he's crazy. But the fact that he is dressed up is not really played for laughs.
Yeah.
It's maybe that first reveal. It's just oh my God. But everything at past that point, the joke is that he's selfish.
And even the reveal then to me is always more of like less a reveal of him and his identity and more of a reveal of these two like straight-laced goofballs like walking into a bizarre world or whatever.
Yes,
so it's
absolutely.
Like,
I think the only like frame of that entire giant ramble is he is amazing, and I think that the way how genuine he chose to portray that character is a lot of what gives it its cultural impact and its staying power.
So we've talked about the second best performance in Tim Curry. First, and it makes me sad we won't see more Meatloaf in movies.
Bummer. He almost didn't do it. He almost didn't do the movie.
On the dead, but he was a MAGA dipshit, and he annoyed the shit out of me.
Fuck Meatloaf, man.
He really.
I would do anything for love, but I certainly would not do that.
God damn it, that was a good one.
Oh, you gotta be quicker than that. Yeah, he almost didn't do it. He almost he had to be convinced to sign on for the part because he thought it was like too extreme and too weird.
Was he already like this is like already bad out of hell Meatloaf at this point, or is he like still on the come up?
This was the 70s, so I think
don't have that much of.
This was earlier in his career. I think like a lot of I think Meatloaf really came into his own with hair metal in the 80s because he is kind of just a parody of that, really. But yeah, he almost did not sign on and had to be convinced to sign on because the subject matter was like too weird and gay. So dubious feelings on Meatloaf only.
I also watched the season of Celebrity Apprentice that he was on, and he wept in nearly every episode about like it would be like Tide detergent. It would have Meatloaf weeping.
Yeah.
I do want to say though that
Meatloaf weeping softly in the background.
The 2016 election did give us the beautiful moment where I can't remember who he's on stage with, but he's like rallying. He's trying to like, it might be Trump, like trying to be like rally the troops, and they start singing. I think it's just God Bless America, but like famously Meatloaf has not been able to sing for the last like 30 years of his life.
Nope.
It is the funniest goddamn thing of like him giving it
just
his
doing
all,
his best.
And the voice is
awful.
It is just it is great.
By God, you're trying.
Lovely. It's lovely.
I think that I'm going to say something controversial yet brave here.
Yes.
I think that Meatloaf is the representation of the straight dudes that get into Rocky Horror for the wrong reason and don't understand anything.
Oh, that's great. Yeah,
he is. They always play Meatloaf too.
Yeah,
they literally always play Meatloaf as well. And it's honestly even worse.
He's tough.
Sure.
What the fuck? What do you mean?
Yeah,
who
whatever,
else would
dude.
We play? I don't know. I went into a Jersey.
We've ended up with okay ones. Literally, we've ended up with okay ones because we do the double cast in ours where the same person that plays Meatloaf also plays Dr. Scott.
Okay.
They come back and play Dr. Scott. So we get away with it a little bit because you still have to be in heels and nets at some point. So we don't get anybody who's like not willing to do that. Like that's they always play Eddie, and that is like their patron saint of like, I'm here because I get to say things that I got in trouble for saying in school.
Yep.
And it's just like, ugh. All right, whatever. The only exception is often drag kings will play Eddie, and that is very fun.
Oh, that's cool.
That's very fun. That's what awesome. I prefer personally. It's way more fun, and they're always way more interesting to watch.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap it up here a little bit, do we have anything, Hal, that you wanted to add to the Rocky Horror Picture Show?
Not so much add, but just punctuate, that I think free spaces where people can express themselves, find community, and connect with their self in themselves in the freest sense, and explore, like have some room for play, right? Like have some room to try stuff out, even if that's not your end destination, is increasingly important. And I think it's really lovely when we can reflect on the legacy of that. Like where have those spaces been previously? Where are they now? And what can we do to preserve them in the future? I'm thinking about stuff like that a lot lately.
Me too. As somebody who's primary goal right now is keeping our only gay bar open. Yeah, me too. I posted something very recently that it was, I know it feels ridiculous to like try and sell tickets to shows right now, but when it comes to those community centers, if you don't use them, you will lose them. Like to whatever capacity you can support those community centers right now. Like we do what we can to carve out that space. And like, I am incredibly proud of the Crypties as like a gay space and an experimental space and an absurd space, because that absurdity is exactly what you were saying, like gives you wiggle room beyond the definition to figure out what this definition even looks like on you, or what you even feel like, or whatever. Absurdity is sort of the hall pass to explore that. But yeah, we're in a place where it's going to get harder, but if you cannot support the community staples that you use on a regular basis, we will lose them. And there is a space that a physical community meeting point occupies that the internet cannot compensate for. And I don't know, I feel like that might be lost on the upcoming generation. And that really scares me, because that really, really takes away our ability to like come together and organize in a crisis. You have to have you have to know who's living next door if you have any chance. And so these community spaces are so important. So Rocky is a rare one in that it's kind of a traveling community space, because it represents the same thing no matter where it is. Yeah. And I encourage everybody to go out and look for their local weird spots where the weirdos hang out.
Oh yeah,
because it's priceless.
Before we sign off, do you want to say when and where folks can see Crypties and Pinup Power Hour?
Yeah, so I run the Crypties. You can follow me on Crypties Productions on Instagram and also on Facebook. I also put physical posters up around town all the time. I run that exclusively out of 926 Bar right now, which is my home bar. I do also run their drag night. I do all the casting and do all the promotion for their their weekly drag show as well. But we have a bunch of amazing like places in Tallahassee. The Bark is like genuinely priceless. Like, I'm so glad we have the Bark over in that area, especially now that it's all being torn up. I'm so glad it's still alive. I only want good things for the Bark. I love the Bark. That's a fantastic meeting center. We have Cap City Video Lounge, which is also a fantastic safe place to talk to people that may be like-minded to you. Like Tallahassee is such a weird city because there are weird things and there are weird people and they are so wonderful. You just have to go looking for them because they're buried.
Yeah. That's great. This was really fun. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
This was super fun.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Hal, anything else?
No.
Well, we will
use a water pick.
Get you on the next one.
Pee after sex, everybody.
Yeah. Just general PSA.
I get that it was general PSA right now, but in that moment, I thought you were like very bluntly
I'm looking at
being
you.
like, you've had shit in your teeth.
No.
Use a water pick.
No, I've had 2 dental appointments this week.
Yeah. My heart did sink though.
I was like, oh my God,
I've had shit in
3
my mouth this whole
gum
time.
surgeries in the last 2.5 years.
So,
and a crown and a root canal and 4 fillings.
so use
I
the
have
water
a PSA for my medical whereabouts. If you're a performer and you do anything where you're slamming down onto your knees, please wear knee pads, or when you go home, I'm going to be under your bed. I'm known as this like goblin in the Florida burlesque scene, where if you do a knee drop in my area, I will find you after the show and I'll be like, don't fucking do it. It's like that scene in Billy Madison when he goes back to his kindergarten class and I'm like, don't ever do that. I had a pretty severe knee surgery like 1.5 years ago because of that. I had my ACL and my meniscus completely reconstructed.
Shit.
Still dancing, still shimmying, still sweating, but don't fucking do that. And it's because I was a go-go dancer when I was like 19 and I would jump and slam down on my knees on that fucking box. Don't do that shit. Love yourself. I know you feel you feel completely untouchable now and it doesn't hurt all the time, but it will. And
I've been grimacing since you said hit your knees.
Dog.
So.
Yeah, these sins will haunt you for the rest of your natural life.
Until the next one, use a water pick and wear knee pads.
Yes. At the same time.
And out.
Together.
Watch a million prez if you're gonna bitch about it. That's all. But don't watch it. Don't watch it.
Do whatever you want. Whatever.
Beautiful.